All right, so we are going to get started in child's pose today. So if you want to come onto those hands and those knees, and then we'll tuck those big toes together, sink the hips down over the heels, slide those arms out, rest that forehead onto the mat. And if you want to give those shoulders a little break, you can always take those arms and let them come alongside the legs. Whatever's comfortable to you right now. And start to focus on the breath. Starting to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Feeling the breath move into the body. Filling all the spaces in the lungs. And then feeling it leave the body. Starting to recognize how that breath makes us feel. Starting to let the day go. Bringing ourselves into our rooms and onto our mats. Taking a few minutes here to just really focus on that breath. Taking a couple more deep breaths here. And on our next inhale, slowly coming up onto our hands and our knees. Taking a second to kind of line everything up. And then we'll take one leg, whatever leg is comfortable, just kind of pick it up, roll that ankle around. We were down in that child's pose for a little bit, so those toes might start to fall asleep. Feel free to straighten the leg out, bend the knee in, maybe do some circles on that hip. And then set that leg down, and we'll go to that other side, lifting that leg up, doing those circles with that ankle. You want to point and flex the foot, whatever feels comfortable right now. And straightening the leg, and bending the knee, bringing it back in, maybe doing those circles with that hip. And then setting that leg back down. We'll tuck those toes behind us. Start to lift those hips up towards the sky, coming into a down dog. Take a second here to pedal those feet out. Starting to wake up the backs of those legs. Maybe holding one side a little bit longer before switching to that other side. Taking your time, moving back and forth. And then let those legs come into stillness. Take a deep breath. Exhaling it all out. And on our next inhale, walking our feet up to our hands. Folding ourselves over our legs with a bend in those knees. And then we'll take a hold of the elbows with the opposite hand, letting ourselves hang here for just a minute. And then slowly start to sway side to side. And then coming back center, letting ourselves hang. Let those arms fall down. Do some circles with that head. Maybe shake it yes. And then shake it no. And then letting it hang. And then taking those hands on the thigh and very slowly starting to roll ourselves up, making sure we're breathing. We're hanging for a while, so letting that blood slowly come back to the head or rush down. And then we'll roll those shoulders back down. Take a deep inhale and exhale it out. On that next inhale, bring those arms up, gaze up towards those thumbs. Exhale, opening those arms out wide, swan diving down. Inhale, sliding those hands right under those knees, halfway up. Exhaling down. And inhale, come all the way up. Bringing those arms with us. Exhaling them down. Inhale the arms up. Exhale, swan diving over those legs. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Inhaling all the way up. Bringing those arms. Exhale down. Inhaling the arms up. Exhale, swan dive over those legs. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale all the way up. Bring those arms. Exhale down. All right, now moving into those full sun salutes. Inhale the arms up. Exhale, swan dive over the legs. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, step back to that high plank or onto those knees. Exhale all the way onto the mat. Inhale, just lifting that chest. Exhale down. Inhale, pushing back to down dog so you can pass through all fours here. And then lifting up to that down dog. Taking a breath. And on that next inhale, walk those feet up to those hands. Fold over those legs. And inhale all the way up. Bringing those arms. Exhale down. Inhale the arms up. Exhale, swan dive forward. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, step back to that high plank or onto those knees. Exhaling all the way onto the mat. Inhale, just lifting that chest. Exhale down. Inhale, push back to down dog. Taking that breath. And on that next inhale, walk those feet up to those hands. Fold over the legs. And inhale all the way up. Exhale the arms down. Doing that one more time. Inhale the arms up. Exhale, swan dive over those legs. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, step back to that high plank or onto those knees. Exhale all the way down. Inhale, just lifting that chest. Exhaling down. Inhale, push back to down dog. Taking that breath. And on the next inhale, walk the feet up to the hands. Fold over the legs. And inhale all the way up. Bring those arms. Exhale down. We'll release the hands down by the sides. Take a breath. And then we'll toe heel those feet so they're about hip distance apart. And we're going to start to sink the hips back like we're sitting into a chair. So we're going to sink those hips back, round those arms forward so they're pointing kind of up at an angle. The gaze is forward. Making sure that tailbone's nice and tucked so we're not arching our back. And the weight's all in the heels, nice and wide on those toes. And we'll take a couple breaths here. And on our next inhale, we'll pop ourselves back up. Exhale, drop those arms down. We'll take our left leg, stepping it back long onto the mat. So we're in a high lunge. So making sure those feet are on those railroad tracks so they're not directly behind each other, but nice and parallel to each other. Up on those back toes. Front knees right over that ankle. Inhale, bring the arms up. And as we exhale, we're going to come over that front leg, taking the left hand on the inside of that right foot. So we're going to stack that shoulder, or that wrist right under that shoulder. As we inhale, start to turn, lifting the right hand up. I think I might have gotten that confused. Sorry, guys. So the left hand is down by the foot. Right hand's pointing up towards the sky. Trying to turn as much as we can. If it's too much on that shoulder, you can take that hand, just let it rest on that lower back. Taking a couple breaths here. And exhale, bring that arm down, placing both hands on the mat. We're going to drop down onto that back knee, untuck that toe, take those hands on that front thigh, give ourselves a little help up, kind of shift that front foot out just a little bit. So we're going to be at an angle, so we don't want to be straight up and down here. We're going to sink into that front hip, so we got a little angle here, feeling a stretch in that left hip. And inhale, bring those arms up. And if we want to add the back bend here, we'll take the hands, bring them together over the head with those pointer fingers pointing up towards the sky. Bring that gaze up towards the sky and slowly start to shift that upper body back, engaging those abs. We can always stay straight up and down. We do not have to add that back bend. Taking those deep breaths. And we'll slowly start to bring ourselves straight up and down. Release the hands. Exhale the arms down. We can come over that front leg. So we're going to start to straighten that front leg, coming up onto that heel. Cramping that, or cramping in that hip. Straighten it out, bring it back. So we're going to just come over that front leg as much as we can, feeling the stretch down the back of the leg. If we have yoga blocks or pillows or books or anything, you can set those on both sides of the leg. Kind of bring yourself up a little bit if it's too much in the stretch to be down on the mat. You can always put a little bit of a bend in that front knee also. Taking some deep breaths here. And then we're slowly going to start to put a bend back into that front leg, shifting ourselves back forward, putting that ankle back in that back leg, hands up on that thigh, bringing ourselves up. And we're just going to hold this for a breath. So if we want to take the right hand, placing it right on top of that leg, take the left hand, placing it right on top of that right hand. And we're just going to hold ourselves forward here for a breath or two. And then we'll bring those hands down onto the mat on both sides of that foot. If we can, tuck those toes behind us, pushing that knee up off of the mat, rotating that back foot so it's parallel with the mat. Hands on that front leg, lifting ourselves up. And once we're standing, we can kind of adjust those feet. So we want to make sure that back foot's parallel, that front foot's facing nice and forward. We'll put a bend in that front knee, arms out over those legs, and gaze over that front middle finger. And take those deep breaths. We're trying to relax those shoulders down the back. Trying to keep those arms nice and even with each other. Feeling the weight evenly distributed between both feet. So we're almost sealing down that back foot. And take a couple breaths. And straightening that front leg. We're going to start to kind of shift that upper body over that leg and then tilt ourselves down. Bringing that hand right on top of that shin. Or we can be up on the thigh with a little bend in the knee. And that left arm's pointing straight up towards the sky. That gaze is either down at that foot, at the side, or up at that top hand. Whatever's comfortable on that neck. And take those deep breaths. And slowly putting a bend in that front knee, lifting ourselves back up to that warrior two, bending that knee, arms over the legs, relaxing those shoulders down the back. Taking a couple breaths. And we'll release those hands down, straighten that front leg, rotate that foot so it's parallel with the mat, that front foot. Line up those toes. Inhale, bring those arms up. And exhale, going right down between those legs. We'll stay here for a couple breaths, so just letting that head hang. Take those deep breaths. And then taking those hands right up at the face, straightening those elbows, and walking ourselves towards the front of our mat, turning those feet so we're up on those back toes, and then stepping that back leg forward, folding ourselves over the legs, and inhale, come all the way up. Bringing those arms, exhale the hands down. Release those hands down by the sides, taking a breath. And then starting to toe heel those feet so they're that hip distance apart. And we'll get ready to do that whole sequence on the other side, evening ourselves out. So we'll slowly start to sink those hips down like we're going into that chair and swing those arms forward. Tucking those tailbones. All that weight's in those heels, light on those toes. Taking those deep breaths. And then we'll slowly pop ourselves up. Exhale those arms down. We can take the hands on the hips if we want, or just let those hands fall by the sides. This time we're going to take the right leg, stepping it back long onto the mat. Get that balance. Make sure those feet are on those railroad tracks so they're not directly behind each other. And that front knee's over that front ankle. We'll inhale the arms up. And as we exhale, come down over that front leg. Placing that right hand next to that left foot, right under that shoulder so that wrist is right down. And then we'll slowly start to turn towards that bent knee, lifting that left arm up towards the sky. Again, we can give that arm a rest if we need to, letting it hang over that lower back. And taking those deep breaths. And we'll slowly start to exhale that left arm back down onto the mat. Dropping down onto that back knee. Untuck those toes. Hands up on that thigh, bringing ourselves up. And again, we're not going to be that straight up and down on that back knee, so we need to adjust that front foot and sink into that hip so we have that arch or angle here. And you feel that stretch down that left hip. We'll inhale, bring those arms up. And again, if we want to add that back bend, we'll take the hands, bring them together. And those pointer fingers are up towards the sky. Gaze is up at that front or up at the sky. And slowly shifting that upper body back, engaging those abs. Again, you do not need to put that back bend in if it's not comfortable. So feel free to stay straight up and down. Taking those deep breaths here. And slowly starting to shift ourselves out of that back bend. Release those hands. Exhale over that front leg and start to shift those hips back. Straighten that front leg, coming up onto that heel. Again, if you have those blocks, books, pillows, anything that you want to put on either side of the leg to bring ourselves up a little bit, feel free. Or we can always have that bend in that front knee if that stretch is a little bit too intense. And take a few deep breaths. And we'll slowly start to put that bend back into that front knee, going back to that stretch that we have. And take those hands up on that thigh. Sorry, my balance is a little off today. So we're sinking into that front hip. This time taking that left hand, placing the right hand on top. And taking just 2 breaths here. And then we'll release those hands coming down on both sides of that front foot. Popping those back toes, lifting that knee, rotating that back foot so it's parallel with the mat. Hands on that thigh, giving ourselves that little assist up. I'll turn around for you guys. Again, once we're in our standing, we can adjust those feet so that foot is nice and parallel. Front foot pointing straight forward, bend in that front knee. Hands out over those legs. And then that gaze is over that front middle finger. Relax the shoulders down the back. So if we feel that we start to kind of shrug those shoulders up, just slowly relax them down. Trying to keep those arms nice and even with each other. Taking those deep breaths. And on that next inhale, straightening that front leg. And then slowly starting to shift that upper body over that front leg and then tilting down. Again, the left hand is placed on the shin. We can be up on that thigh. That right hand's pointing straight up towards the sky. The gaze is either up at that front or up at the top hand, down at that foot, or at the side. Whatever's comfortable on the neck. And take those deep breaths. And slowly putting a bend in that front knee, starting to shift ourselves back up into that warrior 2. So arms over those legs, gaze over that front finger, relax those shoulders down, take a couple deep breaths. And then we'll slowly release those hands down, straighten that front leg, rotate that foot so it's parallel with the mat. Lining up those toes. Inhale those arms up. And exhale, going right down between those legs. We'll hold this one for a couple breaths. So let that head hang. Just let that whole upper body relax. And then we'll take those hands right under that face, straightening those arms, and walk those hands to the front of the mat. And we're going to actually step the front leg back into down dog. And then come down onto the knees. Put those big toes together, sink those hips over the heels, forehead to the mat. If those arms need a little break, you can take them alongside the legs. And take a few deep breaths here. Using this time to refocus on the breath. Again, going back to how it makes us feel. And if those arms are alongside those legs, start to walk them out so they're nice and long on the mat. And start to lift that head up, bringing yourself up onto all fours, tucking those toes, and lifting those hips up towards the sky. Again, feel free to pedal those feet out, lifting one heel, dropping the other. And take those deep breaths. On our next inhale, we're going to lift our right leg up. As we exhale, start to shift that knee forward, dropping the foot between the thumbs. Take those hands up on that thigh, giving ourselves that little help up. And again, shift those feet so they're nice and parallel with each other. So we're not straight behind, we're on those railroad tracks. And inhale, bring those arms up. We'll hold here for just a couple breaths. Exhale, drop those arms down. Bring those hands around behind you, either resting them so they're right on top of each other on the lower back, or you can kind of fist bump those fists together right on that lower back also, whatever's comfortable. Take an inhale. And as we exhale, shift over that front leg. So that right shoulder's coming to that right knee, just barely over it. If it's too much here, we can take the hands, dropping them onto the mat, giving ourselves a little bit extra support here. Take those deep breaths. We'll only hold this for one more breath. And on that next inhale, bringing ourselves back up. Exhale those arms down, rotate that back foot. So we're gonna rotate the back foot so it's parallel with the mat. Take those hands on the hips, kind of shift them over to the side a little bit. So we're gonna have those warrior two legs. So we want that front foot going nice and forward, bend in that front knee. We're gonna take the arms out over the legs And then we're going to rotate that front palm as we exhale, shifting ourselves back so that left hand is coming on that back thigh. Gaze is going up. A little bit of a back bend here, so engage those abs, helping that lower back out. And take a breath, maybe a couple. And on that next inhale, bring ourselves back up. Exhale those arms down. Rotate that back foot so we're kind of facing forward, and then hop it forward so we're standing at the top of our mat, and shake those legs out. All right, we'll do that same thing on that other side. So we're going to take that right leg, either have the hands out or on the hips, whatever's comfortable. But we're going to take that right leg, stepping it back nice and long on the mat. Again, we're on those railroad tracks here, so making sure those feet aren't directly behind each other. And inhale those arms up. And staying right here for a couple breaths. And exhale those arms down, letting those hands come back behind on that lower back. If you have those hands stacked on top of each other, try to switch it up so that opposite hand is on the bottom than where we were on the last time. Or you can have those knuckles fist bumping behind you. Taking an inhale. And on that exhale, folding over that front leg so that left shoulder is coming to that knee. Again, you can take the hands, placing them on either side of the foot. And take those deep breaths. And on that next inhale, coming back up, release those hands. Rotate that back foot so it's parallel with the mat. So I'm going to be kind of my back to you guys. So take those hands on those hips, rotating them so they're facing that side wall, making sure that back foot's nice and parallel, front foot's pointing forward, bend in that front knee. Take those hands out, and we'll rotate that front palm up to the sky. Exhale, shift backwards, letting that right hand rest on that back thigh, bringing that left hand up and overhead. Gaze going up. Again, we're in a little back bend, so engaging those abs here. And take those deep breaths. Take one more. And on that inhale, bring ourselves forward. Exhale those arms down. Rotate so we're up on those back toes, and then step that leg forward and shake those legs out. All right, we'll release the hands from those hips if they're on there. Inhale the arms up, bring that gaze up towards the sky. Exhale, swan diving ourselves over the legs. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, step the feet back to a down dog. We'll hold it for a breath. And then slowly come down onto those knees. Big toes together. Sink those hips down and rest that forehead on the mat. Take a deep breath. And on our next inhale, we're going to come up onto those hands and those knees. We're going to bring our right knee forward. So if we want to straighten that left foot coming up onto the toes and kind of propping that knee forward might be a little bit easier to get it there. So wherever is comfortable on that knee, this right knee is going to be kind of our stretch anchor. So the more it's faced forward, the less of a stretch you're going to get depending on how tight that hip is. So the more the shin is parallel with the mat, the deeper the stretch you're going to get. Again, it's all dependent on that hip. So when you find where you're going to get your stretch, go ahead and rest that back foot down, dropping off those toes, resting that knee down. Trying to keep the hips nice and even with each other. So if you feel you start to roll onto that right hip, maybe take a pillow or something and stick it under that hip to make sure they stay even. So we'll hold it here with the arms up for a couple breaths. Allow that hip to kind of relax. Maybe get an idea of what we're doing here. And when we feel ready, we can drop down onto those elbows. And only when we're ready. And at any point when we're moving throughout these different levels of this stretch, if it starts to become too much or it hurts or anything, back out of the pose. This is a pretty deep, intense stretch for that hip. So we want to make sure to give it a little bit of time to release and relax. And when we feel ready, we can take those hands, stacking them on top of each other, resting the forehead onto those hands, or going directly onto the mat. Or you can take the knuckle kind of fists and kind of rest that head on the fist also. Whatever's comfortable. Again, you can stay on the elbows or you can stay up on those hands. And give those right toes a little bit of a wiggle. And then just let them relax. And we'll slowly start to come out of this pose by lifting the forehead up, bringing those shoulders right, those elbows right under those shoulders. Taking the hands right where those elbows were, coming up onto those hands. And then slowly rolling onto that right hip. Bringing that left leg around. Taking that right foot out in front of us and giving it a nice shake. Wiggling it around. Maybe roll the ankle, wiggle those toes, let all that blood come back into that leg. And then we'll slowly make our way back up onto all fours so we can get that other hip. So again, if we want to straighten that right foot, kind of tapping those toes onto the mat and then shifting that left knee forward. Again, that knee is your stretch anchor, so if you have a tight hip, going straight forward is going to be just perfect, or trying to take that shin, making it parallel to the mat, whatever's comfortable to you. When you find wherever is going to get that stretch, let those toes come down onto the mat or that foot, rest that back leg. Again, keeping those hips nice and even with each other, so we don't want to roll down onto that left hip, so if we need to get that pillow or block or anything to stick under that hip, feel free. So we'll hold here with the hands on the mat for a couple breaths. Allow that hip to start to relax a little bit. And then whenever you're ready, coming down onto those elbows, only when you're ready, and only if it's there for you. You can take a couple breaths here. And then when you feel ready, you can take those hands, stacking those hands, resting the forehead onto the hands, directly onto the mat, or you can take those fists stacked on top of each other and rest that forehead on those fists. Whatever is comfortable. Again, if at any point throughout this pose, you need to go up to the elbows, back onto the hands, or come out completely, feel free. And take those deep breaths. And give those left toes a little wiggle. And let them relax. Sending that breath into that hip, allowing it to relax and release just a little more. And to start to come out of the pose, we'll slowly start to lift the head up. Bring those elbows right under those shoulders. Take those hands right where those elbows were, coming up onto the hands. And then slowly rolling all the way onto that left hip. Bringing that right leg around and then straightening that left leg out in front of us. Giving it that nice wiggle. Rolling that ankle, wiggling those toes, letting that blood come back into that leg. And then we'll take those feet together in front of us. Start to bring those feet in towards those hips. Give ourselves a nice little rock so we're up on those sit bones. Take an inhale And as we exhale, fold ourselves over those feet, trying to keep the length in our back here. So we don't want to round ourselves over the feet. If we feel like we're starting to do that, just come up a little bit out of the pose. We'll hold it for a couple breaths. And then we'll take both hands on the floor in front of us, slowly starting to push ourselves back up. Take those hands under the knees, give those legs a little bit of assist up, and then slowly start to make our way all the way down onto our mats. Bringing those knees up into the chest, taking a hold of the legs, and just slowly rock side to side here. And if we want to get a little bit deeper onto the back with that rock, we can bring ourselves up, taking a hold of the outside of those feet, bringing those knees kind of into those armpits, and then slowly rocking side to side here. A little bit more pressure goes onto that spine, to those muscles around that spine. And then we'll slowly release those feet back down onto the mat. Placing one leg down, placing that other leg down. We'll take those arms up overhead, doing one final stretch. So stretch those arms all the way up, stretch those legs all the way down, just like we're waking up in the morning. Full body stretch here. And then relax it all down. Let those legs fall to wherever's comfortable. Bring those arms down alongside the body. Start to close the eyes. Start to refocus on the breath. Feeling it move into all those spaces in the lungs. Going all the way down to the toes. And then feeling it leave the body with each exhale. Starting to clear the mind of any thoughts we might have. Releasing the body of any tensions we might be holding. Feeling it leave with each exhale. And letting ourselves sink deeper and deeper into our mats. Taking these next few minutes to not have to worry about anything, to not have to think about anything, to just let everything go. If you find that your mind starts to wander, or maybe you're having a hard time just shutting it down, try just focusing on the breath, maybe counting each inhale or counting each exhale. Taking this time to just be with yourself here on your mat. We'll slowly start to bring a little life back into the body by wiggling the fingers and toes. Start to roll the wrists and ankles. Rock your head from side to side. Begin deepening your inhales and exhales. And when you feel ready, slowly take one foot, placing it on the mat, and follow it by the other foot. And then slowly bring one knee to the chest, followed by the other knee, taking a hold of the legs, rocking side to side. And when you feel ready, roll onto your right side. With your right side grounded by the earth, leaving your left side open to the sun, the moon, and the stars, and all the gifts the universe has to offer you today. When you feel ready, come up to a comfortable seated position. We'll take the hands, place them in front of the heart. Close the eyes one last time. Take a deep inhale and exhale it all out. Thank you for sharing your practice with me this evening. I hope you have a great rest of your night. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.